Hi, I'm Emily and welcome to episode 1 of the Pepperknits Knitting Podcast. I'm a knitter based in Perth in Western Australia, and I'm excited to have a place where I can share all of the things that I've been working on. I also enjoy sewing and other crafts, but my main focus is usually knitting. Like I said, this is episode 1, and my plan for this podcast is to follow a traditional format in terms of the structure. I want to start off talking about finished pieces. I'll move on to my works in progress, and then I will share any acquisitions at the end. I'm excited to jump right into things. I will first talk about what I'm wearing. This is my sea salt tee, and I test knit this one for Atelier Castin, and I knit this one in BC Garn Bio Balance. I knit the second size of the pattern, and it's one of those very popular contiguous shoulder constructions that are everywhere at the moment. It was a super engaging knit. It was really fun to do. You were never bored. There was always something new that was going on. Very interesting shaping and very cleverly done, and a really neat pickup for the neckline as well. This one is quite cropped. I'll stand up so I can show off the length of it a little bit. It just barely meets the waistband on my high-waisted jeans, but I'm quite comfortable with the length, and the sleeves are also nice and short, very cute. The weather has been getting nice and warm here in Perth, so I've been looking forward to getting a little bit more wear out of this one. The Bio Balance is a cotton merino blend. It's quite warm, so probably won't be able to wear it on really hot summer days, but it is great for transitional spring weather. Without further ado, I will talk about my finished pieces. The first thing that I wanted to share is my Tolsta Tee, and this one is designed by Rebecca from the Creabea. I finished this one most recently, and I've had my eye on the pattern for quite a while. I bought it as soon as it was released, but we were going into winter when it was released, so I only just got around to making myself a version now. I made the first size of the pattern. I knit this one in 2 different colours. The cream is Fiori DK Merino silk. I think it's 75% merino, 25% silk. The brown matches what I'm wearing at the moment. This was some leftover Bio Balance that I had from making this t-shirt. So I was excited to be able to use some scraps and then only be able to get away with 2 skeins of the merino silk. I pretty much followed the pattern exactly. I did also make the modification to the neckline that is in the pattern, where I cast on 4 fewer stitches, and then I did the ribbing and then increased them back out just so I could cinch the neckline in a little bit. I think you can tell it is also quite wide still, even though I did the decreases. So I think if I was going to make a second one, I would take out 8 stitches in total. I kind of prefer this style of neckline. Not so keen on the really wide boat necklines, and especially with the silk, I think it's stretched out a little bit. So saying that, I could probably put in a little bit of elastic in here to cinch the neckline in a little bit again. I think one of the main draws to this pattern is the kind of possibilities that you're given permission to do. You get 2 PDFs with the pattern. You have the instructions, and then you have a whole section of modifications that you can make. The one I did obviously was the stripes. I followed the instructions for the ones with the thinner stripes, but there were also some really gorgeous ones with colour block stripes that are very tempting to do next. There's also some really sweet designs with eyelets that were striped across with garter rows and with picot edging on the hem and on the sleeves. So it's very inspiring to see lots of different options and having a really nice kind of basic pattern that you can add on your own twists and kind of change up with your fibre content as well. The DK weight version is knit on 5mm needles, so you can see how drapey and open it is. The gauge is quite loose, so it's perfect for really warm days, and definitely the silk in the main colour kind of lends itself to being really nice and flowy. So I'm excited to get more wear out of this one during the summer months. I have worn it a few times already, and I can already tell how much this is going to pill. It is really soft, and it was quite inexpensive yarn, so I wasn't really expecting the highest quality by any means, but I don't know if you can see, there's already like kind of fluffy bits coming off the yarn. We'll have to see how it wears. Probably a yarn that I won't purchase again considering that, but I think it's worth it for such a soft fabric against skin. This was the second of Rebecca's designs that I've made. I've also done her Kerr sweater, and both of them were really nicely laid out, very easy to follow along and understand, and she has very clear instructions without having too much information that can be overwhelming. So as it is a very basic raglan construction, I think anyone could make this t-shirt. It goes by so quickly because of the loose gauge and the fact that it has short sleeves, so you don't have to worry about getting stuck on Sleeve Island. So that is my Tolsta Tee by Rebecca from the Creabea. My second finished object is my Salerno cardigan by Sophie from the Knit Pearl Girl. And I made this one in Drops Wish, which is the recommended yarn, and I made the first size. Sophie also recommends in the pattern that you could hold a silk mohair with the main yarn for that extra layer of fuzz. I chose not to get the silk mohair for a few reasons, mainly because I hate the feeling of silk mohair on my skin. I'm one of those people, it's really itchy, I get hot, I get sweaty, and it just doesn't agree with me. It's also just an added cost. It's not very easily accessible here. There's not really many options for me to go to my local yarn store and pick up a sweater's or a cardigan's quantity of silk mohair without it costing me a fortune and probably not being that great quality, to be honest. And thirdly, it is just really not cold enough to justify having lots of really warm mohair garments here in Perth. This one is definitely more like a jacket to me anyway, but saying that, I really enjoy wearing it. It's really easy to pair with anything, mainly because of the color, I think, and it's quite cropped, so I can wear it with high-waisted things. So the pattern recommends using 9mm needles. I had to go down to an 8mm to get gauge. I'm not usually one to go for these chunkier knits. I don't usually love how they look, even though yes, they are really speedy. It's just not really a look that I'm a fan of. The reason I like this one so much is because of all the finishings that Sophie included into the design. You have the I-cord bind off on the sleeves and on the hem, and obviously the double knit button band. I think it's really polished and clean, and kind of maybe uplifts the chunkier gauge to make it not seem like all of the other chunky knits that I just don't really like. I also found these really cute little black matte buttons to add onto the cardigan. I think they pair quite nicely with the grey, and just the overall look of it is very wearable. Sophie's pattern writing is really good. I really enjoy reading her patterns. She has a lot of her personality kind of comes through in the pattern as you're reading it, which I think is really fun. It's a little bit different. She has a lot of information, so I can see how that might be overwhelming to some people, but if you just kind of take your time and read through the pattern and enjoy the process, it's very easy to kind of work your way through. Sophie also has some really helpful video tutorials in the pattern. I used one of them for the double knit button band to get started, and because she makes them specific for that pattern, you don't have to kind of figure out how that applies to what you're doing. You can just follow along the steps, and she makes it really easy. So saying that, she also released the Semper cardigan V-neck the other day, and I already bought that. I don't have any yarn to make it just yet, but I think her pattern writing in combination with just a classic V-neck raglan cardigan, I knew that I would want to make more of those in the future and kind of have that gap in my wardrobe that I wanted to fill. The sample she made for the Semper cardigan is also in this really nice bright red. I'm not usually one for bright colours, but I think having such a classic design in a really fun colour would be a really good addition to my wardrobe. Anyway, so that is my Salerno cardigan. Again, a little bit worried about pilling on this fabric, but I did expect it from this yarn. It's a really like airy, lofty, loosely spun yarn, so that's okay. I kind of expected the pilling on this, and to be honest, it's not as bad as I expected. I don't know if you can see there. I haven't de-pilled this at all. I finished it maybe a month ago and have been getting a decent amount of wear out of it. So I think if I just stay on top of de-pilling it or just don't look at the underarm, then we'll be all good. My next finished object is a continuation on from that one. I made the Viima beanie by Veera Välimäki, This one is a free pattern I found on Ravelry, specifically to use up the leftovers from my cardigan. This one is quite a chunky knit. I again had to go down a needle size. The pattern uses 8mm needles, I believe, and I went down to a 7mm and cast on fewer stitches. I cast on 52, which I think is less than the smallest size in the pattern. I have a pretty average size head, but I think my gauge is loose. But here is the beanie. I don't know if I like it, to be honest. I'm not used to seeing myself in hats. I don't really wear them. It doesn't get cold enough for enough days of the year to justify having lots of beanies. I'm glad I got the extra ball of drop swish out of my stash and into a project. I'm going away at the end of the year. I'm going to England and Ireland, so this may come with me. I definitely will need a hat over there. I'm sure in December and January it will be absolutely freezing, so it would probably be nice to have a really nice warm alpaca wool hat to wear. Oh, I don't think I mentioned the drop swish is a alpaca, cotton and wool blend. It's mainly alpaca, so it is quite warm and fluffy and soft and has that nice drape to it as well. So I'll see how much wear I get out of that one. I don't think it will get a lot of wear, to be honest. If I don't, I will try and find someone who will get a bit more use out of it than I will. But saying that, I'm glad that the yarn is not just sitting there. I tried to find a project for the extra ball straight away because if I didn't, I knew it would sit there and collect dust. So at least it's been used now. I have one more finished object to share today, and these are my Hollingbourne socks by Charlotte Stone from Stone Knits. This pattern is in the first volume of the 52 Weeks of Socks book, and I've slowly been working my way through the patterns in there, just kind of picking them out as I want to make them. Some of them I made as gifts, mainly for my mum, because she is very knit worthy when it comes to hand knit socks. She wears them all the time. So I made these in Drops Nord, which is a alpaca polyamide blend, I believe. Oh, it has a bit of wool in there as well. I'm just looking at my notes. First time using this yarn. Is really inexpensive, so I thought I would give it a go as I'd heard pretty good things about it. And I think I like it. I really enjoy wearing alpaca, as you can tell by the other few projects that have alpaca in them. I don't find that irritates my skin at all, but I do find that it maybe pills a little bit more than a wool would. So I haven't worn these socks yet. I will have to keep an eye on the pilling, especially for socks because you're kind of a bit more hard wearing on them. I am a bit worried about the pilling, but we'll just see what happens. I'm not very hard wearing on my socks. I don't wear them in shoes very often. Mainly just wear them instead of slippers around the house. So I think they'll be okay. So obviously I had to inverse the colours for the second sock. I finished the first one. I was a bit worried about running out of the grey. I weighed what I had left and definitely wouldn't have had enough. So I just decided to inverse the colours instead of having to order more yarn and then have more left over. I think ideally I would have liked them to match, but I think it's a little fun thing and something unique to making your own garments. You probably wouldn't be able to buy something like this in the shops. The other thing that kind of bothers me a little bit about the socks is how much bigger the second one is than the first one. You can really see that it's longer, it's also a tiny bit wider, and you can definitely see in the heels that my gauge was just a lot looser. I don't think it's the difference in yarn. They felt very similar to knit with. I think it was just the way that I was knitting the colourwork. I am a continental knitter most of the time. I haven't knit colourwork socks before. These were my first colourwork socks. So I was excited to kind of experiment a little bit with how I would hold the yarn, how I would tension and just play around with it. As I was saying, I'm a continental knitter and my favourite way to make socks is on the tiny little shorties, the little 20 centimetre. These ones I used my 2.25mm Chalgu needles. And I find it really uncomfortable to knit English style on those needles. I think the short tips just make it a little bit more tricky for me to hold the yarn and the needles at the same time. So I knit these socks holding both colours in my left hand. I had the contrast colour kind of on the left closest to me and then the main colour behind furthest away from me. And I was just kind of like picking the strand depending on which part of the chart I was up to. And this was a really new technique to me. I've seen lots of reels on Instagram and people talk about doing this. I hadn't tried it myself and it was a little bit fiddly and tricky to start off with. The first sock, I think it turned out smaller because I was just a little bit more tense and was probably had a bit more tension on the yarn and was just fiddling around with how I wanted to work that technique. By the time I got through the second sock, I could tell I was a lot more in the groove and it flowed a little bit quicker for me, so my tension muscle loosened up, hence the slightly bigger sock. They both still fit me okay. They will probably stretch out a little bit anyway as I wear them. I am glad I tried a new technique, and it was a lot of effort. It took a really long time. I think I got to about here on the first sock and just ran out of steam. I left them for a few weeks and then I just went back, picked them up, smashed out the first sock, and then once I saw how beautiful it all looked together, I was a lot more motivated to go on and finish the second sock. So apart from the obvious size difference, quite happy with these ones. I would definitely make more colourwork socks in the future. I think it could be a really good way to use up lots of little scraps from previous socks and make something really fun. I did say those were my final finished object, but I have one more that is kind of only just a finished object. As of a few hours ago, it was still a work in progress. But this is my Springfling by the Petite knitter. I'm really happy that I made this. I'm not going to say I'm really happy with it, but we'll get into that. I made the second size in this one and I used Drops Baby Merino, which is 100% superwash merino. It's kind of a sport weight-ish yarn. The pattern calls for DK weight yarn, so I held it double to meet gauge a bit closer. In the end, I was quite a bit still off gauge. I was definitely over and it's turned out a little bit bigger than I expected. The grey yarn I've had in stash for a while. I made a cardigan out of the grey, ripped the whole thing out because I just didn't like how it was feeling. I didn't like the fit or the drape. It's very, very classic superwash, very slippery, smooth kind of feeling. Not really my favourite, I think I'm coming to learn. As soon as I saw the pattern released for this one, I knew I wanted to make it. All of the Petite knitters' patterns at the moment are just stunning. They're beautiful, and I love that she has matching socks and accessories for a lot of her designs as well. As I already had the grey in stash and I wanted to use it up for something, I bought 2 balls of the white as a contrast, and I'm quite happy with the colour choice. I think the high contrast really makes the colourwork pop out, especially as it's only on the yoke and there's nothing on the bottom or the sleeves. It took me a while to finish this project. I just made a few silly mistakes that were all my own fault. I didn't really read the pattern properly, I suppose. As I was saying, the Drops Baby Merino is definitely more a sport weight yarn. I tried holding it just one strand for the whole yoke. I knit the whole yoke and blocked it and tried it on. I knew it would be too small. I knew my gauge was off. I was still making the second size and it was way too tight. I hated the feeling of it on my skin. It was just really didn't fit properly at all. So eventually I ripped the whole thing out and started again, holding 2 strands together. In hindsight, I should have gone down to the first size because obviously my gauge would have been too big compared to the pattern. I was just a bit lazy and over it at this point. I think I just wanted to get through the colourwork again and get to a point where it would fit me. I did have to make quite a few modifications to the pattern. The first one being the yoke is 1 flower round shorter than in the pattern. And that's, just because of my gauge was off. I kind of did the final round that it is now and I could see that it was quite long. I blocked it and then measured it against the schematic in the diagram and realised, yep, I was bang on. I cut off the chart there and then split the sleeves and carried on with the body. I made the sleeves quite a bit shorter as well than in the pattern. That was just my personal taste and what I like to wear and what I think looks best on me. The length of the body is kind of in between that for the cropped and the regular length that's specified in the pattern. I'm not 100% sure if I like it. I think I kind of want it a little bit shorter, maybe go for exactly what the crop length is, but I might just give it a few days, wear it, see how I feel, and maybe pair it with some different bottoms and actually decide, do I need to make it shorter? Will it be too short if I rip it back a little bit? The final modification that I made was to add short rows. As you can see, the front neck is a little bit lower down than the back. The pattern doesn't have short rows in it, which I was a little bit surprised about, considering how popular her patterns are. I'm not sure if that was intentional or how it would have turned out if I didn't include the short rows, but this is my first circular yoke pattern, and I have kind of heard a few funny things about how it can really annoy people if the neck is like riding up like this, and I knew that that would bother me a lot. So I just decided to add them in myself. I followed some tutorials that I found online, so they made it quite easy to understand the concept of adding them in and where you should kind of stop and how many to add in. I'm quite happy with how they turned out. I probably could have added in 1 or 2 extra, but saying that, it's done now. I'm not ripping it back again. You can also really see where, wow, that's really obvious. You can definitely see where I've changed from knitting flat in the short rows to then going in the round. It's a little bit annoying, but I think I would rather have the short rows in there and have the benefit of better fit than seeing the kind of janky difference in gauge. And to be honest, you probably aren't really looking at that. The main attraction is definitely the colourwork in the yoke. It is still a little bit damp from blocking. I will just maybe let it dry and try it on and see if I really like it. I tried it on before I did my final blocking. It was kind of mostly blocked anyway. I think I like the fit. It's very different to what I'm normally wearing. As you can see, this t-shirt has kind of minimal positive ease and this one is very boxy. I think it's a combination of just the design of the pattern and also me being above gauge and probably going up a size. I think I should have just made the first size. I also don't love the yarn that I chose for this. Again, glad that it's out of my stash, but yeah, maybe superwash yarn like this that is kind of targeted towards babies, so it's probably very heavily treated, I assume. The stitches in this just look very stringy. I don't know how to describe it, especially if you kind of pull on it a little bit. It doesn't kind of bloom and fluff out really nicely. Again, just totally my mistake. I think I need to start exploring more non-superwashable options. I'm not a super big fan of really rustic, scratchy yarn. I'm just a bit too delicate and sensitive to those. I understand why people do like them and I wish that I could wear them. We will do some research and try and find something a little bit more suitable. I would really like to make this one again, definitely in a non-superwash yarn, something a little bit more appropriate for colourwork. It still needs to be something soft though. A little bit too delicate to be wearing really scratchy rustic yarns. Overall, I'm still really glad that I made this. I have taken away a few learnings from it, which to me is kind of makes it worth all of the effort that I put into it. I'll probably still wear it. I'm not really sure on the occasion because it is quite a thick t-shirt. I don't know if it will get a lot of wear, particularly in the warmer months. This will be definitely way too hot and stuffy. So those are all of the finished pieces I have to share today. They're kind of an accumulation of the past few months of knitting. So I just finished the Springfling. The socks are also a very recent finished object. So I therefore don't have a huge amount of whips going on at the moment. I'm not typically someone who likes to have lots of works in progress going at once. I try to limit it to 3, maybe 4 absolute max. I find if there's too many projects on my needles, it overwhelms me and then I just don't want to knit on anything, which kind of defeats the point. I usually like to have one main sweater project or something a little bit bigger that I work on usually at home. Then I'll have a smaller, maybe sock project or something really easy that I can take on the go with me, something really nice and portable and a little bit smaller. And then I usually have one other project on the go in the background if my sweater project needs to be on pause, if I need to block it midway through or I need to pause, make a decision. I like to have something else on the go that I can just pick up that is a low priority whip that is just nice to have on the go in the background. My first work in progress is the Lily tank top by Along Avec Anna. I test knit this one for her a few months ago and I made it in her yarn in this beautiful cream colour. I did make a few modifications to it. I did the test knit as kind of written out in the pattern and then I kind of went to wear it and realised that I wanted to change a few things. So that one I had to kind of rip back and make a few changes, and I'm glad I did because now I can apply the same to the second one. This one is knit in a very different fibre. The first one was in the 100% Merino, and this one I'm making in the Go Handmade Bamboo Tencel yarn. It's a one from Hobie. I made a dress out of this yarn and I held it with a brushed alpaca silk. That was the Oh My figured dress, which I absolutely love. But saying that, once I finished, I had probably about 2.5 balls left of this one, and it was just sitting in my stash for a while. This summer I thought I need to use it and make it into something wearable. It is very soft and drapey. It's a very thin yarn. It's very slippery. You can see on I have needle stoppers on my DPNs to stop the yarn from flying around everywhere. I'll see if I can hold it up to get a better kind of view of it. So I've done the body and we have one of the back pieces done, that's a triangle, and I'm working on the second one and I've just started the strap here. I was talking earlier about the modifications that I made to my first one. I made the body quite a bit shorter. I think I took out 10 centimeters of body in the length. It is knit bottom up, so I had to rip out all of the 4 triangles, all the straps, the double knitting. That took forever, but I'm really glad I did because it's a lot more wearable for me now. As you can probably tell by all of the other finished pieces I have, I prefer something a bit cropped. I usually only wear high-waisted jeans, so I like the kind of fit of my tops to just brush past the waistband, and I'm really glad that I went to all the effort of ripping back my first Lily tank top. It also has a really sweet little picot hem on it, so it was a shame that I was always tucking it in and hiding that really nice feature that drew me to the pattern in the first place. I also then made the double knit straps 2 stitches narrower. Yes, I made them 2 stitches narrower than specified in the pattern, and also went down a needle size to have them just a little bit more narrow. They look really nice in the pattern. It's just a personal preference of mine. I decided to make the same modifications for this one. I also took out the picot hem. I wasn't sure how nice it would look in this yarn as it is quite drapey, and I thought it would be nice to have one with just a flat hem, a slightly different look I suppose. It does look really cropped, but I'm assuming this yarn will grow quite a bit once I block it. The straps are definitely also not the specified length in the pattern. I just got a bit lazy and I'm kind of hoping they'll grow out a little bit as well. I'm looking forward to having this one ready to go for summer. It's very drapey, soft. It is quite a see-through fabric. You can really see my hand through. So I don't know how I feel about that. But saying that, I am glad that the yarn can get some use. It's been sitting there for a little while. Probably not something I would purchase again. It's very splitty, very soft, which is very typical for 100% bamboo yarn. But yeah, we don't have too much longer to go on this one. I'm just looking forward to having it done and ready to wear. My second and final work in progress for the moment. I only have 2 things going, which I'm quite happy with. It's just nice to focus on a few projects and just make some good progress on them. So my second one is going to be a cushion cover. As you can see, it's obviously not very far through. We've had a little bit of an adventure with this one. I am just making this one up as I go. I don't really know how it will turn out, to be honest. I will talk about the yarn first of all. My lovely boyfriend was in Melbourne a month or so ago and he went yarn shopping for me. He picked up a set of miniskeins from Manos, Uruguay. It is their Fino yarn, which is 70% merino, 30% silk. And he picked up these really, really nice blue-green colours. These are the colours that came in this set. Very, very beautiful. They're just a single ply yarn. And in these colours, I wasn't really sure what to make with them. I didn't think I would wear a garment. As I was saying before, I don't really wear hats. I'm not really a huge kind of cowl or scarf wearer, but these colours conveniently match our home decor colour scheme a little bit. The colours are all quite tonal. There's some lighter and darker bits. I assume that's to do with the way that the different fibres, the merino and the silk, pick up the dye. There's the first one I'm using is this really nice blue. It has some grey, some lighter blues, darker blues. There's a kind of a classic cream. This one is a little bit more of a solid, probably an undyed one I assume. Next is this aqua colour, a beautiful grass green, and my favourite one is this really nice pearly colour. It has some pinks in there and some greys on maybe an undyed base or quite a cream base. As I said, I'm making a cushion cover out of these yarns. I have made it kind of half once before. I just cast on a random number of stitches and started knitting. I am doing it in linen stitch, so it is fairly tight gauge. I got to this colour and then I realised it was probably going to be a bit too small and I would have quite a bit of yarn left over. I was just knitting that one flat. I was going back and forth, and then my plan was to just make a canvas or a fabric backing to sew onto it at the end. As I kind of got halfway through, I thought, no, let's just rip this out and try again. And as you can see now, I'm knitting this one on magic loop. I decided to try and maximise my yarn usage. So I'm playing a little bit of yarn chicken, but that's part of the fun and the adventure of just making it up yourself, I suppose. I started with Judy's Magic cast on, and then I'm just knitting in the round in linen stitch. You can really see the different colors and the variation. I think it's really, really beautiful. My plan is to do 2 color linen stitch as like a bit of a transition in between the colors. So I'll alternate between the blue and the white for a few centimeters and then switch into all white and then do the same with the next color. I have a vision in my mind, so we'll just see if it works out in the end. Either way, I'm enjoying this. It was a new stitch for me to learn and I'm just kind of making it up as I go. I very rarely do this. I'm someone who likes patterns. I like knowing the outcome of what I'm making, but I'm kind of enjoying the process of making it up as I go. I'm not afraid to rip it out. It's a little bit of a pain ripping out this really soft single ply, so I'm hoping I don't lose too much yarn to breakages and things. Those are my only 2 works in progress at the moment, just kind of enjoying working on 2 things at once. Usually I would have a 3rd one going. I am thinking about casting on a bigger sweater or a summery top or something, but I think I need to finish my lily tank top first, otherwise I know I won't finish it, especially when I get to the straps. The double knitting on that just takes forever, and I just need to sit down and smash it out over a few hours. Oof. Oh, there is a fly in here. Those are the works in progress that I have to share, and I do want to talk about some acquisitions, and within that there are some future plans involved. I very rarely buy yarn without a specific pattern or project in mind. Occasionally I do fall for those beautiful single skeins of sock yarn in some really pretty colours, so I do buy those if I really like them, or if I'm in a new place with a yarn shop that I don't have easy access to, or the yarn is hard for me to find, etc, etc. But I did go to one of my local yarn shops the other weekend. I went to Calico and Ivy, and it is a beautiful shop. It's really nicely laid out. They have quite a good selection of different yarns that aren't so easily accessible here, so it's really exciting to see kind of the knitting community growing a bit more in here in Perth. The first purchase that I made was these 2 balls of Knitting for Olive Merino in the colour Artichoke Purple, and I think they're beautiful. It's not a colour I am ever drawn to. I never ever buy or wear purple, but I think it's just because this is such a nice muted dusty colour. I just thought I would try something a bit different. Here it is a bit closer. Such a nice colour for spring. I was really inspired when I saw these 2 sitting there. I am going to make a mini mock neck tank by Jessie Made Designs. I have seen everybody make this. It looks like such a nice layering piece and one that you can kind of just throw on with a cardigan or a jacket over if it's a bit chilly, or obviously just wear it by itself on warmer days. I've knit with this yarn before. I do find it really nice and soft, so I'm excited that this is a non-superwash yarn that is really nice and soft against skin. I've swatched for the mini mock neck tank already, but I have to do it again because I was a bit too enthusiastic and used the wrong needle size. I think I was just scrolling through the pattern on Ravelry, the first page, and I just saw a random number and went for it. But anyway, I know I like this yarn, and I have knit one of Jessie Made Designs patterns before. I did the Summer Secret crop, one of her really nice summery crop tops. So I'm excited to get this one started. I think this will be the first thing that I cast on when I finish my lily tank top. I have heard that you have to be a little bit careful with the row gauge on that pattern. I think because it's knit top down and you're kind of knitting the panels and then joining the underarms, you have to be a bit wary of how long your panels are getting. So I will just gauge swatch again just to double check that I'm not going to have any issues down the road, especially after my Springfling that just caused so many issues. I think it's nice for me to just learn from that, take the time to swatch properly, and yes, read the pattern properly as well. The second purchase I have to share is some beautiful cotton cashmere yarn by Katia in this lovely, lovely pink colour. This yarn is 90% cotton, 10% cashmere. The colour of it is not something I would usually buy for garments on myself. I don't think pink suits me that well. I think this one will be okay though, and there's also a slight variation in the yarn from, I assume the dye is picked up differently in the different fibres, so I think that will kind of break it up a little bit. and I will be able to wear it very easily. My plan for these is to make another sea salt tee like the one I'm wearing. I get so much wear out of this one. I love how it fits. I love the kind of look on it. I can wear it to work. I can wear it on the weekend. I find it a really easy to style piece, and it just goes with everything in my wardrobe. As this one is made from a cotton merino blend, it doesn't have very much drape to it. It is a bit more of a stiff fabric. I don't know if you can see that. So I was excited to have a different fiber choice and a different color, obviously, to have a very different look at the end. I haven't swatched for this one yet, so I'm looking forward to breaking into it and seeing how the yarn works up. It is a lot softer than this yarn, and I think I can tell already that the cashmere will kind of lend itself to a little bit more drapiness. The final purchase that I have to share are these lovely skeins of Circus Tonic Handmade. These ones are her merino bamboo ching sock base, which is 80% superwash merino and 20% bamboo. They're both a fingering weight sock yarn. I first picked up this nice blue-grey tonal colour called Spangled Drongo, and the second one is called Vanilla Lily, which is a cream base with these beautiful lilacs, pinks, and there's some blue speckles in there as well. You can kind of see there's a bit of a colour scheme going on with the pinks and purples. My plan for these ones is to make some socks. I have used this base before to make some socks for myself in the colour Galah, I think, and they're really soft, beautiful to wear. These ones will not be for me. They're going to be a page for my grandparents, who I will very excitingly be able to see on my trip at the end of the year. I haven't made socks for them before, so I am a little bit worried about making sure they fit properly. I think to kind of help combat that, I'm going to make some ribbed socks, probably 2x1 or 2x2 ribbed socks. I have a free pattern in my library that I've used for myself and a few other people in my life. Hopefully making them ribbed will allow them to stretch out a little bit more widthways, and I will just have to guess the length. I think maybe my mum will have their shoe size. We'll see. We'll just have to see how we go. Worst case scenario, they don't fit them, and maybe I take the extra yarn with me to lengthen them if they need, or take them home with me and then post them. We'll see. I'm sure that they will appreciate the thought, and I think these two colours together are also really pretty. I know they'll appreciate having kind of an Australian hand-dyed yarn. My grandma is the one who kind of inspired me to get really into knitting in the first place. She didn't teach me the basics, but she did teach me kind of how to purl and kind of those additional skills that you need to pick up when you're learning how to knit. I just know that they will appreciate how much work that I put into making the socks and how much work went into dyeing the yarn by hand as well. They're definitely knit-worthy people, and I look forward to casting these on, thinking about the time that I get to spend with them, and obviously gifting them to them for Christmas. That is everything that I have to share today. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about my knitting. I feel like I've been talking for ages, but it's just really exciting to have an outlet to share the things that I've been working on and what I'm excited about. There's no one else in my life who knits as much as I do, unfortunately, so I think it will be good for me to have a place to share all of the things to someone who actually wants to listen, rather than my mum just sitting there listening and nodding politely to me talking about all of the details that she probably doesn't understand. So like I was saying, thank you so much for watching and just tuning in and listening to me talk. I am looking forward to continuing this on and sharing more about my projects as and when they happen. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.